A lot of you have noticed that I've started shooting Ask the Meadmaker from Red Brick rather than at Grenfell and wanted to know why. That's because this is where my baby hangs out. Welcome to Ask the Meadmaker, where I, Ricky the Meadmaker, answer your questions about mead making, mead drinking, mead brewing, and any question you're willing to send to me. The first question I'm going to answer this week is my favorite kind of question. Wait for it. Question from a new mead maker, Expendable 123. Should fruit be added to a melomel in primary fermentation or secondary? And they wrote secondary, like what milk comes from. And this is why it's my favorite kind of question, because it's answered by someone else for me. Expendable 123, I can answer that. The answer is, it's up to you. Personally, I found that adding fruit in primary gives you a more subdued fruit flavor that really comes through on the back end. Putting fruit in the secondary tends to be a bit more bold and can mask the flavor of the honey. The only addendum to this is strong citrus fruits that don't ferment well. A lemon or pineapple will just sour your batch. Just play around with it, have fun, and experiment. Pikmin God Olimar, you nailed it. Our next question comes from John, and it's another one of those, boy, I should have probably written that better or answered that before. He was reading my recipes online, and it says that we mix all of our ingredients together at 104 degrees, and then 24 hours later we put the yeast in. Do we hold it at 104 degrees for 24 hours? That seems complicated and like a lot of work. It is complicated, a lot of work, and no, we don't do it. We mix it together at 104, then we use some street temperature water to bring the temperature down to about 90, and we just let the air temp take care of the rest. Our next question comes from Wyatt, which is neat because you don't meet a lot of Wyatts anymore. Wyatt wants to make a semi-sweet mead, and it's not clarifying, so he wants to use bentonite, clarifying agent, and he's worried that as the bentonite falls through solution, it will take out the dissolved, non-fermented honey, and it'll end up with a drier mead. And is this something to worry about? The answer, as far as I know, it does not bond with those sugars. Our next question is sort of a PSA, actually, and as all of you know from a few weeks back, I don't do PSAs, they don't go well. But this one's from Paul. We had a gentleman from Orchid Cellar. Do you know him? I always assume you mead makers keep a wary eye on each other like Old West gunfighters. They may be keeping an eye on me. I feel that the world is not full of threats. He spoke at our monthly meeting, and it was terrific. Everyone learned a bunch, and a number of our members decided to try making their first mead. And I was thinking, you might want to suggest that anyone in a homebrew group invite their local mead makers to their meetings. And if anyone watching makes mead but doesn't belong to a group, they should consider joining their local one. It's nice to get to talk about something other than beer, which we have to do all the time. Are you involved in the local Vermont homebrew scene? I like the PSA portion, and yes, I am. I'm a celebrity judge. Our last question this week comes from Andrew, and he wants to know, when I say secondary fermentation, exactly what do I mean? Do I mean that I'm taking my mead completely out of one tank and putting in another? Or am I simply racking the yeast off the bottom? Or am I waiting for fermentation to complete and then throwing a bunch of stuff in, regardless of the yeast at the bottom of the cone? And the answer is, sometimes I'm meaning each of those things. Hope that helps. That was our last question this week. I'm just going to send it over to Ricky with our word of the week. Ricky? Thank you, Ricky! Yeah, no, I feel pretty laid back and tropical. I'm a new word of the week, Ricky. This week's word is umami. Umami is all the rage in cooking. It's another flavor. There's salty, there's sweet, there's bitter. They're not on different parts of your tongue. Go look it up. Umami is a richness, something you get that is in mushrooms and meats. And there's been a move towards making more savory alcoholic beverages, and people are looking for ways to introduce an umami characteristic. Here's a fun little fact though. Mushrooms and yeast are related. So you can actually develop umami flavors by picking the right yeast. How cool is that? Umami. So our word of the week and the end of our show. Keep sending your questions, and I'll get to them as soon as possible. Cheers.